Welcome back to the channel. All right, it's time for the next class in the December 2024 Top 10 series from myself and the MCoC Illuminati. Hopefully you're familiar with the format by now, but if you're not, we're going to jump to a quick explainer of the format out of this. The whole idea is for you to see all the different minds and experiences that go into creating that general tier list each and every single month, and also that there are so many different ways to be incredibly successful in this game. And that's why so many different people like so many different champions. And then we put that together for you each and every single month in the general tier list. And then before you head on, there's timestamps in the description so you can jump around. You'll see my rankings too. Of course, make sure you enter the drawing to win the free 6-star relic that I will be giving away. I have changed that deadline to December 30th, which is why the intro to all these videos is now the same. That's the day of the release of the general tier list in December from myself and the Illuminati. Make sure you comment on all these videos, you make me laugh, you show you watch the video, and you provide some constructive criticism on ways I can make my videos and these videos better so we can all have just even more fun and learn even more things as we head into 2025. Pay attention to YouTube comments because that's how I will be contacting you. All right, let's get into this. All right, now here's going to be the format for every single one of these class top 10s as we go through December 2024. You can see on the right-hand side, we broke the game down into 4 different categories. The way we are looking at the game, what we think about when we're making our rank ups, and when we get together and do the monthly tier list, right? It's what helps prevent the tier list from being too biased towards one person's experience for the modes they enjoy and those sorts of things. Broken down between battlegrounds, fun, alliance, war, and content. Fun is like, who do you enjoy playing, all right? And there's gonna be the personal and the recommended. For mine, I'm gonna always be going through the recommended. We're gonna look at the Illuminati's, and then I will show you my recommended. And then at the very end, we will definitely take a look at my personal too. So you can see how that is different based on what I personally enjoy and what I think would be great for someone who's playing the game in a similar way to me. All right, let's take a look at what the Illuminati has for us. All right, as far as the Illuminati rankings, we will start off with MCoC Encyclopedia. Despite being in Salty, which literally just won Alliance War, like first place, it's phenomenal. You can see the content score is the highest for MCoC Encyclopedia. No wonder he's able to put out so many incredible content guides. Makes a lot of sense. And you can see that stands out light for the recommended. If you have similar priorities or based on these priorities, Aegon is up there so incredibly high. Aegon was phenomenal in Necropolis. One of my favorite champions to use. And then, no surprise, Kate Bishop up there tremendously high. Kingpin, the basically kind of the master of shrugging debuffs and then becoming insanely powerful off of that. All of these make a lot of sense when you consider MCoC Encyclopedia's priorities and the way they're playing the game and all of the massive knowledge they're putting out on their channel. Staying true to their Battlegrounds and Alliance War priorities with Agatron, Kate Bishop, still dominant, one of the few 6-stars that truly is dominant in these modes, right? Crossbones, who you know I love. We're going to talk about Crossbones a lot today. Mantis, Bullseye, and then the other one, I think this is a really prudent call, Black Panther Civil War. I did the video on new buff champion Black Panther Civil War. If that's your champion that you pulled from the, I think it's like the gifted Glorious Guardians Crystal. I don't know. The word trips me up a little bit. Really cool. I do think you're going to want them at high sig, but that burst damage off the SB2 is bonkers and doesn't seem to be too influenced by things like weakness or inequity that could be spec'd into in competitive PvP modes. You see Shang-Chi, Atuma, and Falcon there as well. This list makes a lot of sense to me. Keep your eye on Black Panther. Very shrewd call out of Vegatron. Tom Jarvis, an extremely highly skilled Battlegrounds player there, but you see the focus on war. That's the priority, right? Kind of similar to what I was talking about. It was like, I rank for Battlegrounds and fun. Well, Tom's clearly doing a lot of Alliance War, which then by virtue of like how much things are stressed, how difficult the nodes are, defender combinations, very rarely do you ever find yourself thinking like, oh, I wish I had this other champion for content. Kate Bishop, still the queen. You see her up there. Nick Fury, that's an interesting one to see up there. Now, I know a lot of high tier players still use Nick Fury because you can just get through a fight. You can just absolutely blitz it down. And if something does go wrong, you've got that second life to rely on. So very safe in that regard as well too. You see Shield up there, a lot of the same champions and scores, and you're going to see that continue. And then as I was just ending off that last one with like a lot of the same champions, a lot of the same scoring, skill is in a really interesting place. And we'll talk about that when we get to my top 10. I like seeing Chilth as high as I do. I think she's an absolute blast to play. And you can see Campo, 4 out of fun. That is his highest priority in this game. Really enjoys content. There's another former tier 1, planner, masters, played forever with him in SSX. The guy would take fights that would just like blow your mind, and he'd be like, oh yeah, it wasn't that bad. And you're like, okay, that was an insane fight you just pulled off, but that sounds great. And then now in VOC, really just focusing on having fun, PvE content. I know they still take war pretty seriously there. And you see Patriot starting to sneak out there. The Patriot's one of those champions where like, I'm waiting. I want to see the rebalance news. I want to see what comes out there. I think there's going to be a role for Patriot. Well, there definitely is one as far as like a photon counter, but that reversal thing, B. McGee's been showing me some things that really have me thinking 2025, we might start finding ourselves with a lot of uses for Patriot that we're not quite aware of. They exist. We're just not aware of that exist here in 2024, and some new ones that maybe don't exist just yet. All right, let's go ahead and get to my rankings. All right, now we're on to my rankings, like what I would recommend. Remember, my priorities are 4 fun and then 4 in battlegrounds. And as I've said in all these videos, I've never once thought, damn, if I only had that champion ranked up, or if I hadn't ranked up that one that I did for fun, then I would have this other champion available for EOP. When you rank up for one of the competitive modes and then for fun, I found every single time I have someone available for EOP or a war map or something like that. It's really, really important, as we talk about all the time, rank up the champions you enjoy. You're going to know how to use them, get more out of them. We're going to start off with the honorable mention, which definitely has Black Cat, right? Just phenomenal. And the relic there for her, the Black Widow relic, has been tremendous as far as getting a lot out of your Black Cat. I know some of you are going to see this Silver Sable. I literally did that as desperation to get my Super Daily event. Hopefully the buff is good. That's what that is about. The champion I want to talk about, the other one is Shang-Chi, as far as my honorable mentions for ranking up in the skill class. And the other one is Chill. I don't think she gets enough publicity, and I think a lot is because she's hard to show on a thumbnail. She genuinely is. Bitter Steel did a video like soloing, I don't remember how many fights of Necropolis. And I saw the video and it just didn't do nearly as well as you would think it would. And I think it's because she's like just whittling the champions down. A lot of it's like the bleed damage, and it just accumulates. And with her heavy attack, you can keep it going and the numbers just get large, but a large red bleed, it's a tick. And so you can't really show someone like, hey, over the course of 10 seconds, she did this in a thumbnail. She's absolutely fantastic. She has an incredibly strong cleanse mechanic that you can basically, in playing her, like her flow is great because as you play her, you don't need to do something different really to get the cleanse mechanics going. She has synergies that even help out with it. And those synergies are against with very, very strong champions. What I also want to point out, and I just don't think people know this about her, or they don't think about it when they're asking, like, who should I rank up, or I need this sort of utility. The SP1 has this Grizzly's Grit. It gives you the Grit passive, okay? Which just basically allows you, these things never work. It allows you to, all attacks gain, okay, but it allows you to attack as if the opponent was not even unstoppable, even though they are, right? And it's on you, so you don't need to worry about it. It can't be shrugged off or something like that. Remember, this is kind of like part of what I love about America Chavez or Champions Right. It exists on their side. Can't be nullified, can't be shrugged. And then off the special too, you can't miss. You're prevented from missing. So again, this is not something that like you need to worry about. You can get this up. This one is a debuff. But all right. So while this Tranquilize is active, Chila cannot miss. All right. So you do need to worry a little bit more about that one. You can't use it against Shruggers or those sorts of things. But these are great sources of utility for a champion that has cleanse, is incredibly, incredibly tanky, and then her bleed damage just gets going. As her signature ability comes in, she has that replacement. I think that's with the precisions, right? So you're increasing your critical rating if a champion is bleed immune. It's not as good as the bleed, but at sig level 40, I do feel it. But you're often using her where you want to bleed a champion anyway. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to my number 10 champion. Remember my priorities. I think that's very important to keep in mind. We will take a look at my own personal list here. I'm pulling up the 7 stars. All right. I do not have this champion as a 7-star, and it's one of the reasons you don't see me playing them as often. Again, one of the themes we've gone through a lot is in these at the highest echelons, right? We've seen it in war. There's certain champions that are so broken that they can like still work, or so OP, right? But by and large, if I'm giving up rank up advice, it's focus on your 7s. Focus on your 7s. We are more and more near the very end, if we're not already at there. the end of the 6-star life cycle in your most competitive modes. And the 7-star pool is strong enough where even if the champion on their own maybe is not just quote unquote good, right? They will be strong enough due to being a 7-star that they're going to see you through that content. All right. It is MCoC. Now I've shown you the block damage and I've shown you all those things. So the one thing I just want to point out is MCoC actually has a very powerful, I believe it is a disorient off of his SP1, right? Yes. Okay. And you can play him in a certain way where you can actually elongate that. And then that is why you see champions like Thing dying, because they have the disorient up and then the SP2 into the block. The protection will not stick. And that's why if you face me, I use my MCoC to absolutely obliterate what you felt like was probably a really good matchup with your Thing. You do need to play well. Also, people always underestimate the damage that comes off of his incinerates. They are immense. And so a lot of his synergies, like with Kushala, that are enhancing that are actually really great synergies. The next champion, number 9 on my list, this is purely a defensive rank up. Purely. I know he's got a synergy team and all that stuff, but it's not as good as like Thing's synergy team, okay? This is a defensive rank up. I will also say, I think he's on the downward end. I don't think he's dead. He's still very good. Is a massive health pool. You can say only on rank 2, and you can see that health pool. The signature ability is great, but we're seeing Dazzle. We have Negasonic Teenage Warhead. We are seeing, how much do I want to go? We have other champions coming out who are great for, as we've talked about in a variety of videos, energy damage gets around his thing, which is different than Atuma's. I think of the like kind of big skill defenders, Korg is the most on his way on the downside. Still a worthy rank up, but at a 9 and of the big skilled defenders, he's the one I actually don't think I'm going to take my Korg to rank 3. We'll just put it that way. Skill is in a very interesting place as far as I'm concerned, in that a lot of their 7-stars are powerful as defenders in battlegrounds. And so I think that's made the general tier list look kind of interesting and shows they're really strong. And I do think skill is very strong, but it's different and an outlier compared to the other classes. I'm hopeful in 2025, we see more attacking and dual threat champions come out for the skill class. We'll now move on to Mole Man, an excellent dual threat champion, right? Like for the most part, you can't hit into his block. He's going to go unstoppable. The damage capabilities are immense. He has been fixed, nerfed. It's uncomfortable. Where he can't like keep up his true accuracy. And so that did hurt his value a little bit. But I still think if you're looking for someone who's going to be shrugging those things off, you're looking for someone who has the true accuracy capabilities and the bleed damage and all those things, even has shock immunity. He's still fantastic. I just don't love playing him, which is unusual because I typically like champions like this. And like, it's not purely a counterpunch mechanic per se. It's not called that, but the unstoppable. But I don't know. There's just something about him. But I can't deny that I've seen a lot of things out of like Jaeger with his rank 3 and in War and things like that. Even I've used him in War. He is a phenomenal champion. I hope that we get enough good skilled champions in 2025. The Mole Man's not on this list anymore. I just don't like him. But if you are looking for someone, you're looking for a nice dual threat champion, like I would rank Mole Man well before I would rank Korg, which was one of the many reasons we do lists like this. And me and the Illuminati have put all these together because it makes us stress test these sorts of thought processes. And then when we get together in December and do the big general tier list, that's why there's always a massive update, which there is this year. So make sure you see that. All right, moving on to the number 7 champion. It feels really insane to have her here, but this is how much I mean when I say, if I'm giving up rank up advice, there are very few 6-stars I think you should put your catalysts into. Unless they're expiring and you just have no other good 7-stars to rank up, this is one of the few that I'm like, yeah, she's worth it. Especially if you still have Necropolis to do, especially if Battlegrounds is something you're highly interested in. The amount of damage you can put off of her SP1, which is a passive, it can't be shrugged, and it helps you counter evade, is insane. It is wild. I remember recovering that since like day 1 of testing. You're like, and I can get up more than one of these. The heavy mechanic, knocking them down, hitting them into the corner, the whole thing. I've done a ton of Kate videos. I'm sure by now you're aware of how great Kate is. She is one of the few 6-stars that I still recommend. Like, yeah, actually go ahead and use your catalyst. Yep, she's worth it. She's great in Battlegrounds. She's great in War. She's great in questing. She's great in the long form. I tried so hard to get us to vote for her to come out as the skill 7-star champion. And we lost that vote to a good champion in Shang-Chi. But, I've gone through phases. There's a phase where I was like, why did you not listen to me? But she's so good that I almost think like maybe it was for the best. Maybe it was for the best. I don't know. I'm sure you will let me know. But she's there. If she came out as a 7-star, she would immediately skyrocket easily to the #1 champion in scale. I have like no doubts about that. The game has not passed her by. It's purely due to her rarity luck. Moving on to number 7 here, a champion I hoped to pull on the Titan, and I hope maybe even by the time you see this, I will be the owner of a rank 3 Hitmonkey. I was telling you and predicting that he would be a fantastic Battlegrounds attacker. I think he is, because he's just going to cut through stuff. He's going to cut through the armor. He's going to cut through immunities, and if they bleed, even better. He's simple. He's effective. I did the video on him because so many kept telling like, no, he's really good. No, he's really good. So I did, and I tested the 6-star rank 5 ascended, and I came away blown away. I was surprised at the amount of utility he had, and I wasn't even running recoil for most of it. I don't typically run recoil, and I think he's going to be a monster. I want to rank him, and it's more than just medium, light, medium over and over. I showed you how to even use some of his utility, which is really, really good. I very much want him. Now, again, my focus is fun and Battlegrounds. If your focus was like war, although I've seen him do some pretty crazy things in war too, but if your focus is like content, which is why I don't think we saw him in a lot of the other things. Also, a lot of the other YouTubers, I should actually mention, a lot of the Illuminati, they did not know Hitmonkey was going to be out in the Titan when they got their graphics done. So there's a chance they would have placed him in. Maybe you should go and watch the video and give them an ask. But he's fantastic. He's awesome. I want him. Damage capabilities with actually some utility in there as well. Number 5, as far as Battlegrounds is concerned, is primarily a pure defender. Killmonger does have some offensive prowess, and it feels like not that long ago, but it's actually years ago where I was using him in war. DLL uses him in war, right? When you get this second point of the signature ability, when both Reverb and True Strike are active, Killmonger gains 2,027 attack. That's not nothing, okay? The fact that you can't stack his bleeds is a bit of an issue, but if you apply enough of them, you can get to the SB3, and this actually does a significant amount of damage. He also gets that True Strike capability, right? So he's not a bad offensive attacking champion. He's just rarely going to be fast enough for you in Battlegrounds, but I'm sure in certain tiers of war, you could still use him, and he's definitely usable in questing content. He has some synergies that help him out quite a bit, but it's just defensive prowess that makes him make this list. We have him listed as a defender, not a dual threat. He's a great defender. He has a damage back mechanic. He's tanky with the crit resistance. Medusa, though, and hopefully you've seen my Medusa video. You should go see my Medusa video. If you're trying to figure out which your Glorious Guardians to rank, the answer is Medusa, but also you should go see the video so you can see why it's Medusa, and then you can be even more confident it's Medusa. She's going to destroy him. We've got Dazzler out that's going to do that. We've got Negasonic Teenage Warrior that's going to do it. We've got Guardian that can do it. But he's still good. I think he's still worth ranking. I'm not in a hurry to rank 3 mine, but it's not quite to the extent of my hesitation that I have with Korg. Rank him up, but be aware. Be aware on that one. There's just been more and more counters that have come out that can absolutely obliterate him. But the fact of the matter is if your opponent doesn't have them, they got some serious, serious problems on their hand with Killmonger. All right, let's go ahead and move on to number 4. Coming in at number 4 is a champion that I really enjoy her. I think she's a fantastic champion. She's obviously insanely well made. What she is supposed to do, she does, right? You go for those intercepts, you get the debuffs on, you then hit into the block, you get to the special 2, and the game is over. You put them to sleep. She's clearly supposed to be a nuke for Battlegrounds and for war, and she can do okay in questing content. If this was pure questing, I would not have her rated quite as highly, and we reflect that in the general tier list. But for Battlegrounds and fun, she's fantastic for Willem. Very fun champion. I did the video very early on her saying, I think she needs a slight tweak up to do what she was designed to do. A lot of you told me I was insane. Found out. Kabam agreed with me. She wasn't quite there. They gave her what she needed to be that absolute nuke, and now she is fantastic. She's not fallen off. She's great for Photon. I've even seen people at high skill and high ranking take out Onslaught and other champions along the way, but those are the 2 main meta defenders that she's excellent for. You just got to make sure you're comfortable with the intercept. Make sure you get that down. Once you do, you'll be A-okay. All right, let's go ahead and move on to number 3. This is one of the best champions of 2024. Really made a huge impact, right? Even after his quote-unquote nerf or rebalance down, still a great defender. I still am not able to dex his SP1. and even in 60 frames per second. I'm hoping to get that down over the course of my vacation here. But he's a great, great, great defender. Any sort of power gain at all, and even without it, just really disrupts the flow of an attacker, right? Because he gets that like terminal velocity or killer instinct green passive. There's just often nothing you can do. I mean, you can use your striker, you can throw your special, which is how like Guardian's taking him out. I've shown you Weapon X against him, but still, he's a fantastic defender. And any sort of power gain or disruption that's added in via nodes just escalates his power level as a defender significantly higher. Sinister is obviously good for him too, but this is a champion that even though there's counters and the counters are often in decks, Bullseye is still a pretty safe draft and definitely a weapon to have in your deck. And then on the offensive side, this isn't a nothing champion, right? Like Hot Fuzz showed us that in high tier, tier 1 SSX videos. I've shown you that as well. The ability to just not miss, guaranteed critical hits. His nice damage off the SP2 into the stun into the SP1. You use his whole evade mechanic. So the designer did a great job of taking the defensive threat and actually making something you can use offensively. He's a very good champion. The majority of this, in my advice at having this high, is as a defender. If you're looking purely for questing, I would still consider it. I actually think he's still very, very good. So he's more of a defensive leaning dual threat. We have him ranked as a defender on the Battlegrounds tier list because he's often going to be a little too slow in Battlegrounds. But as far as questing and that sort of stuff, he's very, very good. You can use him. This is definitely a champion that I've ranked up for defense in Battlegrounds, but don't feel like I'm like paying a price. I'll use him in questing content. He's great. I used him for an EOP fight. He dominated it. He was fantastic. All right, let's go ahead and move on to number 2. This is another champion, very similar in some of the analysis on like a high view of what I just said with Bullseye. Nodes can make him absurdly difficult. He is just because with him, you need that hard counter. Otherwise, you are taking damage back. You better have Shuri, you better have Dazzler, you better have Negasonic Teenage Warrior, or you better be a hell of a Titania player, right? There's some other options I'm sure that I just didn't think off the top of my head, but those are the ones that I commonly see in decks or I have in my deck ready to go. Prowler, I guess a little bit, right? But Prowler's light attacks do make contact. So that's where Atuma has a lot of lasting power that I don't think Core currently has, which makes sense. Atuma's a lot newer, right? This is a little bit of power creep coming in. Nothing right now makes me think Atuma's falling off. I still think he is, of all the defenders in the game, Atuma's the one that I most confidently feel drafting blind. And what I mean by that is typically when it comes to my pure defenders in a Battlegrounds draft, I wait until at least a couple rounds in because I know my opponent could pull a counter. There's not that many counters to Atuma. There's definitely not that many counters in decks. They're often still kind of slow. Dazzler's breaking that mold though, and I'll show that to you if I haven't already. But that's just a very, very, very small amount. Every once in a while, I will turn around and actually use Atuma offensively, primarily against Spider Hams. It's happened more than once. Where what you need to understand is that Atuma has, and it's called True Accuracy. I always get my true effects really mixed up, but he's got that off of his SP1. It's countering evade and auto block. Also, Atuma is pretty good in long form content. He's actually pretty good in questing content as well. This is definitely a champion. I've talked to you at length about like, oh, I'm eventually going to get out the Atuma video. It's just there's always something new and timely and whatever. But he's actually pretty good. Now, he is more defensive leaning. I'm not going to tell you that he's here for his offensive use. If it was purely offensive use, I think he'd probably still be below honorable mention. But if you're looking for a great Battlegrounds defender that you can use offensively every once in a while in Battlegrounds, and you can definitely use them in lower tier wars, maybe there's some high tier like specific fights, or in your questing content, or in your long form, Atuma's great. And currently, my number 2 advice rank up if your priorities reach or are similar to mine. All right, and then last but not least, I feel confident about this. I will tell you, and this is a little sneak peek into the general tier list that we're the big update for December. The Illuminati disagrees with me. There's one or two. There's one or two that agrees with me. Thank you, William. I think he is I think he is by far. I think for me it is a margin. It is a tier difference. He is the best 7-star skill champion. He just is. He is handling, and I know some of you, and it's just misunderstanding, and that's okay, all right? Not everyone should ever know everything about every champion. That's okay. Even without his signature ability, yes, the signature ability is helping. This is 76% chance to purify at Sig 130, okay? I would love to get that all the way up to 90%, of course. And when he does shrug them, he gets a Fury buff, so that's helping his ramp even more. But if you think that he needs to be shrugging debuffs to get massive damage, I'm here to tell you, you are horribly, horribly wrong. You are horribly, horribly wrong. He gets plenty of Fury buffs on his way, all alone. Yes, you're going to need to stun or find ways to hit, use your heavy. You will. You can use that to punish the opponent's heavy. You can use it to punish the opponent's special. You can use your striker, or you can stun. I think strikers have been borderline transformative for making him significantly easier to play, especially in his non-hero matchups. Trappy has shown even taking Rintra, who has a neutralize. Okay, there was ways around this, especially because you can get into your ability accuracy reduction just by triggering your overrun. I've shown you multiple videos of Crossbones taking out hazard shift fights at lower sig at a variety of places. And then remember, he's doing all of this while going up to incredibly high numbers of defensive ability accuracy reduction. He also has the non-crit utility that we often talk about as being like, hey, that's valuable. Additionally, he has a debuff off of his SP2 in the Incinerate. He has the SP1, which just helps him with his ramp. You can even use his SP3. This is an insanely versatile champion with massive damage capabilities and the ability to shrug off debuffs. Now, I've been told, and not told as like, I've been advised, that's the way to put it, that it feels like the relationship between skill and science may be evolving. And I can see that, especially champions like Leader and things like that. So maybe he will not be quite as high over the course of 2025, but he's so good that I want to see it. I want to see it first. I think he's great. I think he's excellent. And if I'm advising and I'm giving the advice, he's number one. And he's definitely my number one as well. Let's go and take a look at my own personal tier list too, so you can see what it would look like if we were just going full Vega bias and I wasn't concerned without getting out good advice. All right, you can see my priorities there. We've talked about a lot, and hopefully you're familiar with that by now. And like I've been saying, if you rank up for that, and you got to include the fun, you're going to have champions for everything. You're going to have champions for everything. You're going to have champions for battlegrounds, and when a war fight comes up, you're going to have someone. And when the EOP and questing and all that stuff up, you're going to have champions, right? Because you've ranked up for fun, and you only rank up good champions. I almost posit no one enjoys crappy champions. The big difference here, or just kind of furthering on, is this would be like my full bias list. And you can see Masakre is significantly higher. I love Masakre. I've used him to take out Korg. I've got the step back down relatively well. You've seen me take out photons and things like that, right? So can take out extremely difficult meta defenders. The reason why I don't have them higher in recommended is I've played Masakre a lot. And I'm not the best Masakre player. I know that. But I'm a pretty good one. And I think I'm getting a little more out of him than most players would with a reasonable amount of playing him. He's also a perfect example of what we often talk about in the Battlegrounds tier list, where like, yeah, you could make a champion look better than maybe the score we're giving them, but that's because you have completely dove into them and you might be making sacrifices elsewhere in your deck to include them. Now, Masakre is so good offensively that I don't feel like I'm making like a massive sacrifice, but I definitely have chosen to take him up over Chilith and, like, let's say Mantis or Mole Man or Black Cat or Shang-Chi, who, if I had more of them in my, if I had more of them in my deck, it might be superior. But even as I'm talking about this, I actually believe that ranking. When I'm giving out the full advice, I want to make sure I'm fighting my own internal biases. And again, that's why the Illuminati is so phenomenal, is because we all come out these different directions and we help check each other's biases as we give out advice to you from a variety of playing standpoints, as you can see by this. I really hope you're enjoying this whole process. I'm having a blast with this. I hope if you didn't already know all the Illuminati, I hope you're getting to know them better and you're like, I'm going to go check out those channels that I hadn't already checked out because those guys sound awesome. As usual, let me know what we think we got right. Let me know what we think we got wrong. Make sure you check out the playlist so you catch all of my top 10s. You check out the general tier list as we go about it. We're getting you totally prepared for Banquet. And then you check out all the other Illuminati members' top 10s as well. They've been phenomenal. I've gotten to see a few already, and I'm learning so much. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.